Good evening. Welcome to Discover Design by JS Institute of Design. Today we have some very interesting topic for you, a little different from what we've been covering so far. Nevertheless, very, very interesting. For those of you who have been with us almost every second Thursday, this is Discover Design, and you know that we bring to you various topics uh, which are related to interior design. And for those ones who have joined us for the first time, Discover Design is a series of webinar conducted by us, that is the JS Institute of Design, which brings to you a lot of information and understanding of what design is. For the time being, we are committing ourselves mainly to the interior space, and we bring to you a lot of design aspects related to the space, the material, the design aspects, and any issues related to topics with interior design. Today we have with us Jasmine Roy, who's going to talk to us about art at your feet, design and production of carpets. My name is Nain Xiao. I am the academic head at JS Institute of Design, and I meet you alternate Thursdays and bring to you a lot of interesting people who have great expertise in the subject that they present to us. Jasmine Roy is AVP of Obeetee Retail Private Limited. As we go on ahead today, you will get a glimpse of her real expertise in the area of carpets, deep understanding, and a lot of interesting aspects or stories about carpets is what we are going to hear from her today. She has been she's also earlier worked in Himmat's Sincup Side Private Limited, has and been a designer at Synergy Lifestyle Private Limited. She graduated as a textile designer, but now when I speak to her, I also hear a lot of, I get an understanding that her experience in textiles has also exposed her to the business and the commercial aspects of the products which are not just carpets but textiles as well, and her deep understanding of how carpets really fit into the interior space. This would be very useful for students of interior design as well as young practitioners who are with us today. So, welcome, Jasmine. Um, I'm just going to give a short introduction. But before we start, let me remind all the participants, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A function, and we will take up your questions after Jasmine has finished with the presentation. So to begin with, Jasmine, just as I understand carpets, my little research has shown that today India is a clear leader in the international handmade carpet sector. It is ranked as number one as a producer and exporter of especially handmade carpets and other floor coverings, both in terms of value and volume. It is almost to the tune of rupees 12,000 crores, which was in 2019-20, and perhaps in 21 the figures could be varying a bit. Now, since this is the huge volume of business being done from India, uh, what I understand is carpet did not originate in India. So, what's the story behind this? How did it come to India?
So, thank you for the lovely introduction. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I mean, when we talk about carpets, and then when I first got introduced to carpets and saw how it's actually made, I would almost say, considering my textile background, that it was like a localized craft. People were, you still see how a craft is pretty much born in a village, and like it's very handcrafted. There is detailing at every level. I saw all of it, and what was interesting, especially in the field of carpets and this business, is that over the years, this industry has developed the skill, the craft, in such a way and made it in some ways so controlled that, like if let's say a particular company would be ordering like 20,000 pieces of a carpet of a design, that would be managed across, let's say, 50 villages that are weaving the same design, the weavers. So that kind of managing in a rural area which is bordering around UP, like UP, Agra, that area, is quite a feat. And I would say that probably India is one of the only countries who can manage something like that. But yes, of course, you spoke about carpets, and carpets, in general. I'm sharing my screen. Is everybody able to watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Oh, lovely.
As
Yes.
we show you, so I'm actually giving you an idea of the map, the imagery of this entire space where the carpet weaving is done by OBT. So, if you see all these tiny hamlets all around are the villages where the weavers are based. And the orange dot out there is the one that is the OBT factory. Now, with when we talk about carpets is an embraced art, or you could say an embraced craft, and that came about 300 years ago when when the Mughals arrived here in India, and they started living in these palaces. They suddenly realized that this space looked very bare. There was lack of ornamentation, because India intrinsically is a hot and a humid weather. Most part of India has that of it. So, you don't see really the usage of carpets except the very northern areas of the country. And of course, we see a lot of these namdas in located towards the Kashmir, where people have just taken wool and sort of pressed it together. But when we look at and analyze some of these miniature art, we see that carpets played an everyday active role in the palaces. And at that time when Akbar came in and he realized that the palaces lacked ornamentation, he commissioned about families of weavers from Persia. So the weavers, along with the nakshakars and a whole lot of the whole entire team, traveled to India, and then they settled down in and around the Ganges, in the UP area, then Agra, and some also moved towards Kashmir in the north. So, with time and evolution over the years, with what was locally available, like the Kashmir area had more silk available. So, slowly the art kind of transpired into using more of the silk. And because Badohi and Uttar Pradesh, along with Bikaner, Rajasthan, had locally producing wool, because sheep is naturally grazes there. So they became these weavers were better at weaving with wool. So over the years, this is the story of carpets and how it arrived in India. And truly it has survived all these years. And if we actually look at some of the best carpets, like when we say best carpets in the vintage section, which are above 50 to 100 years old, they are all from India.
Wow. What I hear also, Jasleen, is that some of the best carpets were woven or emerged from the jails, such as Agra jails and so forth. So I want you to share with us some stories on that.
Yeah, so
How
this
did
is
that happen?
also something that, sorry, yeah,
So
please
how
go
did
on.
that happen? Jails producing carpets.
Yeah, so then that's a very interesting story I chanced upon. And it is interesting to know that Akbar, apart from the fact that he was one of the greatest admirers of art, So he brought in a lot of ornamentation when it comes to architecture, fabric, carpets, materials. But he also had a very good sense of getting use out of people. And so, he had like these prisoners sitting around in the jail serving sentences. So how could he make use of them? So
Mm-hmm.
that sort of brought, this whole story of getting these master weavers to train them, and train them in the skill of carpet weaving. And it so happened that over the years, like, I guess those prisoners also being bound, within the four walls, they found that this was their way of expressing their creativity. And what is very interesting, they say, is that during this time, a lot of the jail Mughal carpets have lattices in them. So lattices is almost like you're looking to the outside world of beauty and flora and fauna through those bars of the jail, or whatever your prison bars.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say that over it was during this time that when these craftspeople uh, trained these people, the prisoners, they slowly learnt this craft. They understood what Persian motifs, design, colors were all about, but they also expressed a lot about them and what they see around them, what they saw around them in the through the carpets. So there evolved a very good mix of a Persian and an Indian sort of a vocabulary, and that is what makes these jail carpets very, very special. And during those times, as we know, all handcrafted carpets take a long time to weave, because they we talk about knots per square inch when we talk about carpets. So they were very finely hand knotted, and they were huge carpets. So, like I've mentioned here, sometimes it would take, like, let's say 20 to 30 weavers weaving for almost 15 years to make a single carpet. So that's how, that's the art that we are talking about. So, 15 years of labor gone into one single piece of artwork.
Wow. Would there be any significance of colors or forms, motifs that they use? Because I've been seeing some beautiful forms. Are they Persian in origin? Are they Indian? Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about that?
See, like, when we talk about Persian, this art is borrowed from Persia. So intrinsically, when we talk about olden carpets, like the olden day rugs, there are very basic designs which don't haven't changed over the years. So one is, of course, the symmetry in a carpet. There's always a central medallion. There are floral sprays. Then there are very popular narrative themes like, animals. So when so it's almost like when you actually look at a carpet, it's really beautiful when you look at it at one go. So, but then when you start reading and understanding the layers of stories and narratives, that's what makes the carpet a piece of art. So,
Mhm.
each animals had animal motif, flowers, whatever was used, had some kind of a symbolic meaning, and this came from Persia. And of course, I guess over the years, a lot of things have also been embraced from Indian Hindu culture. And we see certain essences of that in the carpets which were made later. But, like, for example, here one of these this particular carpet's called, on the left, it's called the sickle leaf carpet design, where, this design is very popular. And what is special about this is that this bend of the leaf is called the sickle leaf. That's why. And it somehow beautifully has a uniform kind of a pattern, and that is what I guess makes it very pleasing to the eye, and it's been one of the most fundamental beautiful designs in Persian art.
Mhm.
Then you have the cypress tree, which represents immortality. So very often you will find in imageries with plants, the cypress tree being an active motif. Then floral sprays, these are the most beautiful, effective, easy to use carpets, because not many people enjoy forest scene or a hunting scene, which is also one of the mainstays of carpet narratives. So this is like there's an urn, and then you have like the floral sprays, and you have like lotuses, all kinds of, and very well balanced out. So people say there's a mix of China and Persia here when we see these kind of patterns. If you essentially see here, most of these olden carpets, like the carpets from 100 years ago, they were all made in natural colors, natural dyes. So all these dyes were either derived from plant material, insect, flowers. So everything was natural. Then indigo, all of it. So they had a very beautiful sheen and earthiness to them. And the deeper layers are that each of these colors stood for certain meaning. And we see a lot of carpets from Persia represent, with a lot of green in it. We see a lot of red also, because obviously it has a lot of positivity both in both cultures, like Persian as well as Indian culture.
Mhm.
Here I'm actually trying to show, this is a very interesting visual, is how do we assess. So wool also has various qualities. So apart from the fact that wool is a natural material, it is naturally soil resistant, it is it has a lot of the properties which makes a carpet last. A woolen carpet can last easily like for 150 years without, if it's properly maintained. And maintenance is just about keeping them washed, keeping them aerated, uh, and moisture free. And here what we've shown is how we kind of assess the quality or the grading of the wool. So wool, is derived from sheep. So internationally, New Zealand wool is considered to be the most premium wool. The reason being that it has the longest fiber length, and because it has the longest fiber length, it is there is less shedding, and there is more luster to it. And this exercise is the most important exercise, which is like a precursor to a perfect carpet, because the wool used, which is the main ingredient of the carpet, has to be carefully chosen.
So could you also tell us which are the other materials used in carpets besides wool?
See, we use besides wool, we use silk, but yeah, so Kashmir has carpets using 100% silk. We do carpets with silk and wool, where the base is cotton, the warp is cotton, and then the pile content is like wool and silk. Apart from this, the handmade industry only uses that. We in the flat weaves, which is a kilim style carpet, that where we also use cotton there. But in synthetic yarns are used mostly in the machine made carpets, which is not something that we do in this belt.
All right, fine. Please go ahead.
So this is what I'm trying to show here is like how step by step carpets were, like how the entire you could say the of starting from visualizing the carpet, and then how it comes into a final work of art. So of course the artist is painting meticulously. This is how it used to be done in olden days, like the artist would meticulously paint and create the motif and the balance and everything done very well. then it used to get translated into a graph. The graph has these tiny square boxes, and there each tiny squares would represent a knot. So I have actually, for the ease of the viewers, sort of shown how in earlier days we would use it. We would actually painstakingly, the naksha makers would fill in these dots to represent each knot. Now it is done much faster in a computer where you just fill in and each dot sort of represents a knot, and then it gets translated. The weavers look at this naksha and they weave it, and then you see a final carpet. So how it looks from the time it is being conceived to the final material and the artwork. I've tried.
Just want to ask you something, Jasmine. I believe the form that we see on the page earlier is called the lychee form. Is that correct? Or
Yes.
is it Ambi form? Uh,
And
I believe
so
there is some, it's really relevant to the Indian carpet industry. Would you share with us what is that?
yes, so so it's very interesting. I chanced upon this story while doing a hospitality project where a client of ours insisted that that one successful, beautiful design which made the entire industry, the Badohi belt and the industry thrive for good 25 years. He wanted that design to be used in his banquet. So then when I started researching, then realized that this motif that he was talking about, which is essentially called the lychee, which is a local name, is a sort of a cross between a paisley and a bootay. And like, um, somehow something very beautiful about this artwork, about this tiny motif, which actually is in the design, in the basic field work, it's just very uniformly placed, and that's about it. But somehow something very beautiful about the symmetry, the coloring, that from around the 70s till about the mid 90s, uh, Badohi area got got orders for this one lychee rug forever and ever. So like Badohi right now has about 20,000 companies, like literally, and it wouldn't be it would be fair to say that this particular design has really given a very different kind of an exposure to the entire industry in those years and made it survive. So this craft, for it to have survived all these years, is also has been quite a challenge, because uh, it's a skill that unless you keep practicing it, you will lose the a sense, the understanding of tying the knot in the right manner, doing the right beating, and that is what is the basic integral part of a good carpet.
Mhm.
So having continual business come in from the rest of the world was a great boost to the industry and the market.
Right. That's interesting.
Would you want me to talk about the various kinds of carpets?
A bit, yes. I think that will, that's like saying these are the products. I'm
Yes,
sure they have a name or whatever it may be.
right. So, generally there are different kinds of carpets, essentially being done in this part of the Badohi belt. One is hand tufted. This is a faster technique which emerged in the late 1990, post 1990. And what happens here is that, as we can see here in this visual, that there is a gun, and yarns are fed into it when we actually see. So like the weavers are given a naksha, like how we saw how the naksha looks and how it's painted, the graph, and then he follows color wise, he just follows that on a stretched canvas. So the artwork is actually drawn on the canvas, and then the gun sort of follows through those forms, and fills up those areas. And this machine, when it actually pierces through the canvas and comes out, they clip the carpet, so the other side of it looks like tufts which are just opening up, like how you see in the gray, where they're doing the finishing there. And then post once you finish the initial gun tufting, there is they are taken off the frame, stretched, and then there is latex used behind it. So this is actually glue. So that's the reason why they say that tufted carpet, which is a faster and an easier process because there are no knots being made, has to be arrested with a glue, and hence they are not washable.
Mhm.
And then after that, in terms of sorting, finishing, the processes are the same for both hand knotted and hand tufted.
Right.
This is a hand knotted process. So as we can see that there is the yarn is cotton, which is the warp. And so right now, in one of the lower visuals here, it's the warp is being stretched. Once the warp is made, it is stretched on the loom. So the very first visual, after it is stretched on the loom, um, the naksha is actually kept beyond the warp. The weaver has to see through the warp threads into the naksha, and then he follows the design knot by knot meticulously, and that's how the entire design progresses. And like after, like for example, this particular carpet that we see right now on the screen, it's a 200 knot carpet. It's made of silk and wool. So it's taken the weaver, it's a 8 by 10 carpet, so it took the weaver about 7 months to finish the rug. And after it was off loom, we go through this meticulous process of washing, which is a very important integral part in the process of a carpet. Because this washing, what it does is that takes away all the excess fibers, because wool, as we understand, as we saw in the visual, in the earlier visual, they're all loose fibers which are clamped together, plied. So all the smaller fibers or the raw ends are all drawn out. And once that is done, the luster and the sheen of the carpet shows through better.
Mhm.
This is where we've shown the finishing, the sorting, um, which is the last part of a good carpet, where sorry about this. And where here, where we are showing that there's also being embroidery done on this rug. So if you see, the upper layer is actually in silk, and the base that you see, which is the darkened area, is in wool.
Mhm. Okay. So, is that a common practice to have some kind of embroidery on a pile carpet, or is it always on a flat woven dari?
Well, that's again a story that I was anyway coming to. So
Okay.
this is a particular carpet which has evolved from a collection we did in collaboration with Tarun Tehliani. He's a couture designer, and he is an expert in doing these embellished motifs and designs. So he got his karigars to train our
Mhm.
finishers and tried doing embroidery on carpets, and that's how we came up with the first ever collection with embroidery. So this is the third quality of floor covering, which is the kilims or the flat weave. Here, traditionally, it was pit loom, and the warp was going parallel to the ground. But now a lot of these warps have become perpendicular to the ground, but people still are in the pit. So they sit on the pit. They weave. It's a flat. It's almost like a normal weaving, like the extra weft weaving that you see in general in saris and in other fabrics.
Right.
See a similar kind of a weaving here. And it's a general, the weaving progresses vertically, and once it's off the loom, it is just tasseled and edged. So it's it doesn't have a very meticulous, tedious process, this particular one.
Right.
These are some of the other, kinds of carpet that we see in the industry. One is machine woven carpets. So they are pretty much the technique that we are doing by hand. So they are doing a similar kind of a technique. Uh, One is an Axminster, which is almost like a velvet loom, and it's just that the yarns are much open and thicker. So it just looks more velvet, like a velvet which is magnified. And
Mhm.
these are the carpets which are found in blends of wool and nylon, and is effectively used a lot in the hospitality industry, in the areas which are where there is very very heavy footfall, and a lot of wear and tear, those kind of spaces. And Wilton carpet is another machine woven carpet. It's a 200-year-old technology, and it came from England. But that's something that India imports for its hospitality industry. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about our company, and when it began and how it sort of how our story started. So this is we started Obeetee came into being in 1920. It was three British gentlemen who sort of came to Mirzapur thinking of some commercial, starting a commercial venture, and then they thought that this could be a very, very good sort of craft to kind of make it a commercial kind of a enterprise. And while they founded Obeetee, they also inherited, they bought a bungalow, which is called that which came to be known as the Indigo Bungalow. And we understand that it was so called because, in the same area 300 years ago, there used to be indigo plantations. And, like while a lot of the indigo was sort of exported out of India, so British colonial times we are talking about. But what's interesting is that over the years, indigo plantation stopped there. But we inherited the bungalow, we started carpets, and like it just feels like we completed a full circle when we recently made a carpet in indigo dyes. And we made a contribution to the Indigo Museum, which is in Ahmedabad. So
Mhm.
it hosts a different, like a lot of art, artifacts, sculptures, fabrics, a lot of stuff, all either dyed in indigo, or indigo has had a role to play here. And that's the carpet that you see here, like the close up. We also did a bit of embroidery.
That's very beautiful. Right.
So with carpets and how it's evolved. So obviously I've taken you through the journey of carpets, of how it used to be, and the various motifs, designs, and none of it much changed until the late 1900. But with time, your designs and patterns have evolved, and so has the understanding of lifestyle, and what works well within a space, what which is a design which can, like if we continue with those traditional carpets, obviously it will lose context and meaning in today's modern homes. So we felt the need to keep continuing to kind of change with the vocabulary, and you know the designs and the colors that we use in our carpets these days. here I've tried to show, like all the various kinds of carpets that we essentially use in hospitality industry. So hospitality industry, as we understand, it's a area where we deal with bulk carpets, where bulk production needs to be made. So there are certain parameters that we look at while trying to do these designs, and also kind of figuring out what works, what doesn't. So in the hospitality industry, again, there are different areas, and we work towards the designs based on the end use.
All right. Are we? I was just wondering whether were there any relevant, I mean, whether relevant or big ticket projects that you did with institutions or with organizations? Would you be able to
Well,
talk a little bit about that?
see,
What
when we
kind
talk
of
about,
project?
yeah, so when we talk about large projects, then we either are talking about using tufted carpets, which is because it's faster to weave. However, when we talk about knotted rugs being used in hospitality industry, or in large institutional areas, projects, then we have recently, yes. So these are some of the hospitality, the hotels that we work with. Currently here, what I'm showing you is a hotel in Marrakesh. It's the Oberoi Group,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the hand knotted carpets we made for their public areas.
Right.
This is a high-end chain of the Lemon Tree Group, where it's called the Orica Hotels and Resorts. This is in Udaipur. So this is a tufted carpet. So now I guess with what I've shown you in the earlier slides, so this is how grand the space looks, and this is where the carpets were made, and then they were joined meticulously and put into works. This is a Persian design, and this is a tufted carpet.
Mm-hmm.
These are carpets at the Imperial, which are all hand knotted. This is a not so very old project from the Suk Vilas, Oberoi Hotels again. See, Oberois have traditionally always wanted to have designs which are timeless. They would like the carpets to last good 25 years and not change the look. They believe in the timelessness of certain designs. So here, like this is Oberoi, New Delhi. So I'm sure if you visit to these places, you'll see that these designs don't really change, because he believes in the beauty of these Persian patterns, the way it's balanced, and he likes the space to look timeless like this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these are, of course, certain works that we do when we are custom making designs for projects. So, obviously, we understand the end space, the residential homes. Now, I'll come to certain of the institutional projects we did. This is a carpet museum in Varanasi. It was a part of the Trade Facilitation Center, and this was inaugurated by uh, Prime Minister Modi in January 2019. So he had commissioned Obeetee and another set of people to sort of come together, where the primary task given to me was to sort of not just talk about to put together information research on carpet in itself, because there is no other carpet museum in India. And considering like how you started and you said that the first it's such a big industry, and it is doing such large scale production, and yet we have no information regarding how it evolved, what are the motifs, what are the tools. So if you ever visit this museum, you will get a total idea of at least the basics of carpet weaving, certain landmark designs that have happened, certain designs, how it has evolved in the last 60 years, the relevance of using certain motifs over others. So, all of those aspects have been captured in this museum, including certain detailed, some of these companies in and around that location have over the years like they have a special forte in a particular kind of design and a look. So I actually curated um, carpets from all these, not all, you could say, handpicked some of these main companies and bought their carpets for their display here, so that it shows a very overall, like it has a holistic view of what all in the design vocabulary is going on in and around the Badohi area.
So this must be a big boost to the carpet industry to have a museum situated close to the centers. And I think all students, as well as the carpet lovers, must visit this museum to get a background understanding of what started it off.
Absolutely. And then while working on this, I obviously got to know that the first ever carpet institute is also founded near Badohi. It's
So,
called in Indian Institute of Carpet Technology. So generally there's not there's no we were also never taught about carpets when we were in school, design school.
correct.
So this is all a learning which, while you're working in the industry, you sort of understand, embrace, and sort of work more into it. So this Carpet Institute actually teaches the nuances, the technicalities, all of those aspects. So I feel that's a big positive, for such a big industry. It's an amazing boost.
Right.
These are some of the institutional projects Obeetee did in the past, and we are working on two very beautiful projects. One is the Central Vista, which is very interesting and challenging at the same time,
Mhm.
uh, for the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. Then the second one is the ITPO project, which is for the G20 summit area. So
Mhm.
there's a state of art building with very beautiful carpets being envisioned for these spaces. Um, I think it's going to be very interesting, the display of craft through carpets in these areas when when it finally is open to the audience, which
So
is
we
going to
look
be two.
forward to that. So we really would look forward to that, Jasmine.
Yes.
Um, I think one of our main concerns also now with any industry, not just carpet alone, would be about what's the future directions you see the carpet industry taking up where sustainability is concerned. Um, or is there any way in which you think the carpet industry needs to look at conservation or environmental protection or anything of that sort?
Yes, I would say that for any industry, that's become an imperative thing for the industry to understand. So, obviously, at one time, the carpet industry was riddled with only the issue of child labor, but that was back in 25 years ago. Now there are newer issues. One of the main issues is that one single carpet, an 8 by 10 size carpet, when we need to wash the rug, which is an important integral process of hand knotting, it consumes about anywhere between 50 to 70 liters of water. So, there is a lot of water which is involved in this, not only in the dyeing of yarns, but washing, which is an important part of the entire making of the rug. So, OBT, and I'm sure like some others also in the industry, have already taken a leap ahead and sort of built these water effluent treatment plants where there's a meticulous way where water has been purified, treated, and then it is piped out to the fields nearby. So this is one image of the water effluent treatment plant at OBT.
Mhm.
where it works effectively for the last it's working effectively for the last 10 years. And this, I think, is a very important step, not for most of the people in the industry to take, because water is something that we need to conserve.
Mhm.
And we understand, and like, it's an understanding that the younger generation, like when I say younger generation, the new home consumers, like people, the newly earned, newly married couple who are starting up their home, buying carpets for their home, they are very conscious. They are very conscious whether there was fair trade involved. Is it sustainable? Did it hurt the animal? So when they are so conscious, it's important that we as a brand, or we as an industry, also work hand in hand, and we keep these things in mind and work further, because these will not only help us save resources, but also, I would say this will continue, or probably this will become the USP of the brand, or this industry in the coming years.
That sounds fantastic. I think a high awareness amongst a lot of textile product industries, and carpet itself, I'm sure, is an industry which there's a huge amount of exports happening in carpet area. Is it the same in terms of, is the market as big in the domestic side?
See, I would say domestic is a the Indian consumers are not very tuned to usage of carpets. So, I would say the urban part of the country, the urban cities, there people want, they are, they love decorating their homes. They want carpet essentially as a object of ornamentation more than the utility bit of it. People down south don't really understand carpet as a utility, part in their home. Whereas in the north, because it does get colder in some months, I
Mhm.
would say that people are seasoned buyers here. Like in the north, people understand the usage of carpets, and hence they've had carpets. There are people who've grown up with carpets being used in their homes.
Mhm.
But yes, I mean, the domestic consumers, we have to be educated about the usage of carpets. And also, um, this is since it's an embraced craft and art, so it's
Mm.
only interesting. It gives us a whole big avenue to explore, so I see myself actually looking at a very big market which is unexplored rather. But internationally, of course, carpets, people cannot do without carpets.
Right. So I think we can really look forward to the domestic market really taking up carpets as well. Um, I think there are some questions coming from the participants. Do we want to go there?
Sure, why not?
Right. So, okay. Hello, Rajesh. So Rajesh has a question. As a 100 years old organization, I think is referring to Obeetee, any plans to establish a skill center to ensure that the legacy continues in the generations to come?
Yes, so that's a very interesting question, Rajesh. Just responding to your question, so obviously we have been in and around Uttar Pradesh, like the Badohi belt, and hence all our crafts people are spanning across 25,000 villages in and around Ganges. And over a period of time, when the business exploded, then we felt the need to sort of improve on the skill sets or the hands, and we started on the Women Weaver initiative. And I guess there's probably in future, if the requirement, if there is a requirement to kind of increase the weaver base, we will venture out of UP. But at the moment, we are trying to kind of explore the skills of the women segment. There's a big mass unexplored.
Mhm.
And over the last 5 years, we have trained about 1100 women who are now currently working in many different companies apart from OBT also. And I would say that's a big feat for us, because women, as you know, in these parts, this in the villages, they still observe parda. And we it was very challenging initially to kind of get them to come out, understand that this can be a very beautiful skill to learn, practice, and can become commercially useful to them in raising their families.
Well, so I do think that's something that we could really look forward to. But do they have? Do you think there's any difference in the outcome of the product being woven by either men or women?
Well, I would say most of the women force that we have presently,
Mm-hmm.
they are most when they're learning a skill, the first 3 years, whatever carpets they make, we are only allowing them to make of a particular construction. So only the you know you can develop a skill to do a 300 knot per square inch carpet only in about 10-15 years if you are meticulous. So it's not an art that you can just like start learning and it happens.
True. So many more years to go, but never mind. As long as the women have stepped forward, it's something to look forward to. All right. I think there's a question about the use of carpet in the interiors. So, how does the design process work in terms of when you, okay, I think this is moving back and forth. Designs, color, selection, and the inspiration for a particular project. Yes, so I'm just going to read it again. How would you go about the design process when you select the design colors based on a inspiration for a particular project?
See, what often we do is we ourselves have a studio of 70 designers. So either there are two ways of working in this scenario. What we do sometimes, the client comes and gives us a lookbook or a set of colors to work with. So, and we understand whether the home is of a classical type or a modern type, and based on that understanding, we sort of explore different avenues of design. And since we have been in this business, our vocabulary of patterns are plenty. At any given time, we must be working with about 1,000 designs
Mm-hmm.
across different buyers, different projects, and each being handled meticulously down to the last color, to the embroidery, to the finishing, everything.
Wow, that's really sounds like a huge, huge factory producing designs, I must say. Okay, I hope Shubhangi, you have got the answers to your question. Okay, now the next question is on the if you have to design or choose a carpet for an interior, how would you advise an interior designer, and what should the designer look for?
See, I feel what's interesting to note is that somehow people perceive carpets, until about 20 years ago, there were only one kind of carpets that were available in the industry, which were the Persian high end, very high value special rugs, where we only saw like the high end Kashmiris selling it. But now, we make carpets from 30 knots, and it goes as high as 300 knots. When we talk about knots, which is essentially talking about the intricacy of the carpet and also the price segment. So, so when we are it allows an interior designer obviously comes with a look in mind. He or she understands what the client demands. So when I sort of get a brief about what the client is looking for, what is the target cost, then what we do is we sort of marry the product, the quality, along with the designs and the colors, and then it becomes a very meticulous custom process. So we are custom making a rug which can fit into the space just like how it was made specially for it. So so that's the beauty of customizing projects with interior designers.
Right. It's like getting customized clothing made for an individual body. Here you're doing it for the residents and maybe the choice of the clients.
Yes.
Okay, there's a question on the practicality of the carpets. So if you had high footfall or if you had kids around the place where the carpets have been placed, it's a tough maintenance. So how do you ensure that the carpets remain safe? Is there anything built into the carpet or do you advise how to keep it safe?
See, that's a myth that maintenance is a big turn off. I mean, that's something that I've been hearing in the industry. But actually, to tell you that, of course, tufted carpets, like I explained, is something that is not washable. But wool intrinsically has a soil resistant nature. So, like, should something fall on a carpet, if you just sort of spot clean it, or sort of so wool is a animal fiber. It's like hair, just like how we shampoo our hair to clean it. So if you don't have a very specialized cleaning agent, all you can do is just shampoo it clean in the areas where there's a where there's anything that dropped over, over the area. However, vacuuming is the easiest solution, and in general, hand knotted carpets are the ones that I would probably suggest for homes which have kids, because it can be washed at regular intervals, and there is no issue of maintenance on that front.
Okay. Well, I thought I just saw a question. Is it being shifted? Right. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm going to ask you a question which is on how do you differentiate between the hand tufted and the hand knotted carpets for novices? I mean, there are a lot of lay people around here today and they want to know how would you differentiate it um, between the two, hand knotted as well as hand tufted?
So the most direct differentiation is to turn the back of a carpet. So as we understood from the presentation earlier, that a tufted carpet, since it's a faster process, like making weaving a 8 by 10 or a 5 by 8 size carpet will take a weaver a couple of hours versus a knotted carpet, which is higher. So the back of the carpet is canvas for a tufted carpet, because it is glued. These tufts are glued with a canvas, and then there is another backing, and then it's stitched on. So that's the easiest way to discern a tufted from a knotted.
Hmm.
And again, in the knotted, like if someone really wants to find out meticulously as to how fine the rug is, then the best way to do is actually count the number of dots or the grids that you see at the back of the rug.
Right, right. Well, this is a question you may like to answer or not, but let me ask you anyway. So, Harish Banga has a question for you, and he says that Obeetee has the highest sales in the domestic market. And what is this? Why? Are the carpets imported?
No,
So,
well,
tell me.
so then all through the presentation, I've been talking about this company which has survived 100 years through independence, founded by Britishers, changed hands. So we are totally an Indian company. But I guess what has worked for Obeetee. I wouldn't say we are the only carpet company around here, but or we are the only ones making sales. But I think what has worked for Obeetee is to continually kind of keep searching for ideas to keep inventing new designs, and keep inventing new looks. So if the end user wants to see new things, and how do you get a person, we have the skill sets, we have these weavers who know the art of weaving. So how do you make the floor covering look different every time? So that's the challenge of the industry, and that is what we keep doing. And we recently launched, not recently, about 5 years ago, we launched this whole project called Proud to be Indian. And
Mhm.
we realized that, Obeetee, that carpets in general had a very Persian kind of a signature and Persian vocabulary, because, starting from the motifs to the colors to everything was from Persia. So we tied up with designers like Tarun, with David and Rakesh, with Raghavendra Rathore, who was and the brief was that in the collaboration they will bring what they understand of the Indian textile repertoire, Indian architecture, Indian couture or color, and bring in Indianness to carpets. So this collaboration so far has been really successful. Like I said, in one of these instances, that Tarun actually brought in this whole idea of trying to embroider rugs. And initially, obviously, there was resistance, because something that you've never done or tried before, nobody wants to really try it.
Mhm.
So, but then we obviously had to overcome that, and now I guess a lot of the designs which are embroidered are one of the biggest ones that are selling.
Popular. Wow. So yes, innovativeness, creativeness is one of your main reasons. Uh, Here's another one. What kind of jobs can designers get in a brand like OBT? So there are people, designers, youngsters who are very impressed by OBT as a brand, but also as a place for creative outlet. And I do think that's the reason why they're asking you.
I guess that's a very interesting question, because until about 15 years ago, I would think only textile designers who are creative would find a job in OBT. But with the changing times, with social media becoming such an important area on avenue, there are visual merchandisers who are working with us, there are photographers, there are people who can tell the story. See, we can express the story through our carpets, but we want those stories to come out to the outside world.
Mhm.
So there are photographers, there are interior designers, whole lot of creative people working together to make OBT what it is today.
So, for all of you who really would like to look at the opportunities in OBT, do come forward, and maybe you can, if you can get in touch with us, or whatever inquiries we get, we will forward it to you, Jasmine.
Sure.
So, today we really had a very, very interesting talk, Jasmine. Wonderful, such an insight into a product which just seems so beyond reach, because of its richness and the fact that it's so intricate, very hard to imagine how it comes together. And there is, of course, a whole lot of not only the historical build up, but also in terms of a product, it is so tediously put together, and so, as you said, meticulously put together, that there is no doubt a product like any carpet like this would survive for centuries and become, a hereditary will to pass it on to your younger generation. So thank you very much. For students who would like to know a little bit more or would like to inquire more about what kind of what happens in carpet industry, carpet weaving, but also if you'd like to know more about design learning, how do you become designers? JS Institute of Design offers programs in interior design. If you'd like to know more, please contact us and feel free to ask us any questions you may have about that. So thank you once again, Jasmine. A lot of time, lot of effort from you, and I'm sure all participants have enjoyed this session today.
Thank you everyone. Bye.
Thank
Have
you.
a good one.
Bye.